issue, unless there's some major objection. We haven't been doing that.
What was it?
No.
No, it wasn't. I can speak to it. It was an elder that she's in the doctor hospital or whatever. I think the email even says that and asked of it. So I said I would bring it and print it for her. Mary did put it on a form. I didn't know if it would go or not. I told her, yeah, I'll do that. And then if not, then that's fine.
Or you can put it in the board issue.
I think you could raise it. You could raise it, but I think our practice is not.
Just couldn't she raise it as a board issue and then the person will get a response? Or they're going to packet of stuff?
This one's not one that I can respond to.
Oh.
Because it's not asking anything about a program and service. So it's a question to a couple of board members about something. So I would say if a board member wants to give voice to it during the meeting, that's their prerogative, because I can't cut board members off.
Who's the board member?
Any board member.
Did I do it?
It is somebody from
I've
the
been getting blamed for a lot of stuff lately. I'm just checking.
No. So I'm making a ruling that it's a email, and in the past when emails have come forward, we haven't done that. So we'll copy it for everybody.
Yeah, she becomes
That's
president
fine.
in the future.
She can read it in the future.
Yeah. Okay, next is a written one that Otto would like. Well, I actually requested that we read it, but we also don't do that. So what I will do is I will just summarize in what I understand it to be in the form of a question, if that's okay. So the question was, you had put in for a elder seat on the Unit 3 Elder Subcommittee, and you were advised that you were appointed. However, this came to the Board of Directors, and the board reviewed all of the people who submitted together. We have a requirement of a 2-month notice, and then all of those go to the board office. The board secretary drafts them up, and not drafts them up, but just copies them and brings them to the Board of Directors. And then we look for a motion and second. Typically, we look to the unit to make the motion and second. That is what was done in this case. We had, I think, 6 people for 3 seats, or 2 seats and an alternate. So as far as being told that you were appointed, I don't know anything about that.
I told you that.
I'll tell you, what happened is I wasn't at the meeting, and I got a email that said there was a vote at the meeting, the elder meeting, with the people that were there, and they had a list of people that there was, I think, 4 people. I think that was they voted on. And I got that, and I said, wow, okay, well, I guess that's what they're going to put forward is the one name. I thought that one name would come forward.
Well, you mean the subcommittee?
Yeah, subcommittee.
Okay.
The subcommittee.
The vote.
I guess it was Cheryl, yeah. I wasn't there, so I can't attest to what really happened. I just got an email saying that's what it was. So I figured, I jumped to conclusions. I thought since they took a vote, the elders took a vote, that's the name they were going to put forward, the only name they were going to put forward, and therefore that would be the person. So I mentioned it. My fault. I should never have mentioned it to somebody, the person, so I mentioned it. Then I find out that there was 4 more names added to the list. Those people didn't get in on the vote. And then there was a problem with all these people being on, and there was a vote taken previously and not, and then all of a sudden they were telling me there was no vote taken, and then all these names, I think 8 people got there for 2 places on the board, were put to the board. And it was a big mess, and we didn't really realize what was going on. I mean, that was going to all be rolled out. So why was the vote taken if there wasn't a vote supposed to do anything? There wasn't any procedures to follow. It put everybody in a bad position. So Bridget picked 2 neutral people that, Bridget and I, we first and seconded it, that, there was comments made by board members about different things. And we just said this would be the best place to go at this time and not create chaos amongst the boards about the unit members being on and stuff like that. That's where we went. So that's why we put forth those 2 names, and those 2 names were voted on and approved.
3 names.
The alternate, that's right. 2 names, 2 full and 1 alternate.
An alternate.
Yeah.
There's about 6
But when they did the paperwork down there, Keith, it was only for one seat. That was.
Yeah, so I'm saying, it was really confused, I don't know what was,
They filled 3 seats.
I can't attest to any of that.
The last seats that they filled there, they were never put on the board, that these seats were ready. We had took a vote at the Unit 3 elders in January. We agreed to this. Our treasurer is in Florida, another gentleman's in Florida. We're not going to do nothing until October. This October, we will fill those seats, except the one seat. That's the one that I want.
You have to see, but that's, and I don't know any of that because it was never ever rolled out that way. It was rolled out at a meeting, and it should have happened months before, as I understood, because it was months before that they took that vote.
Well, we said
2 months.
What
So
the world's going on? How can we be voting for these other seats when with nothing been put on the board? We didn't. The one guy is
I have no clue.
is around there, and Billy is in Florida, and he's down there. He never sent no resume, no nothing that he was up. And of course, we get the one lady there who says, "Oh yeah, I got his resume." She never got it.
Well, I can't attest to any of that because we're not involved in any of that. The only time we see anything is when it comes up here to the board. And, you know, the way the vote went down and everything, I've never seen that happen before. I don't know where that came from. I really can't tell you what happened. So, I mean, it really put us in a very poor position all of a sudden to have 8 names in front of you and, you know, and it wasn't pretty.
Now,
Who took, I got 2 questions. Who took the vote?
This is what happened.
Tell me what happened.
What happened is Cheryl came down in January. There was one seat, and that was Ivan Willoughby's that was up. She came down and she said, whoever wants to go on here has to fill out a letter with 3 contents. Okay, so my father did it. Okay. Then come January, she turns around and comes down and she puts out this paper. Everybody, these are the applications I got. One person, select one person on that sheet. That person is going to be the one to fill this. Correct, Keith?
I wasn't there, but I wasn't there. I got that.
Aaron, you were there at that meeting because you mentioned something about one person on that. So that's where Keith got the email stating that my dad actually had it. All the elders voted. And obviously they must have picked my dad, but the rest didn't want my dad on it, so that's why he got out. Plain and simple. Cheryl did 2 things. Content first. And then when my dad asked her, after Keith mentioned it to my dad that he got voted on, he asked Cheryl, and Cheryl says, "Oh, I have no clue. I don't know what you're talking about, Otto. I'll send an email over." So then when Keith came into our last meeting, I did. I come on and asked him. I said, "What's going on here, Keith? This is not right." I said, "Who did you get the email from?" And he told me her. I said, "Her as in the elder care director?" He said, "Yes." So why did she lie to my father and tell my father she had nothing, didn't know nothing about it?
Yeah, that's where the lies.
And there was one seat. So then she says, "Well, we have another alternate, so Otto, fill out it now, and hopefully you get in there." Well, whose seat's up for available? There's only one, and they filled 2.
And the fact is, because I go through this with my other elder committees and get and they don't like it, the bylaws state that when somebody wants to get on the committee, they don't have to go through the committee. They send their stuff up, our bylaws state, they send their stuff up to the elder division and that gets processed through. There is no vote.
That's what I mean.
There is no vote at the elder committee level because our elders don't even know who sends the letter up. It gets processed through administration because they're trying to change that now, so there is some input from the elder committees. But that right there screwed up the whole system because this board, including, I don't know if Bridget and Keith knew, we didn't even know there was a vote taken because that is against what the bylaws state.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So someone's messing around. And I don't know who, but that's because down in my committee just recently, we appointed someone to the committee, this board did, and our committee didn't even know that they had sent their paperwork up. So we just introduced him. He's on your committee. They're like, "What? We didn't get no say in that." You don't get any say in it because it's not, you got to change your bylaws if you want that.
he brought that to the elders yesterday, yesterday, and what we had talked it out, because what I explained was, there was once a time, but we're talking probably 15 years ago, where the elder subcommittees voted on who they were
First got on
nominating.
the board, they did
But
it.
the board took that away years ago because it created such consternation. So what the board does is we advertise in the travel paper for 2 months. All of it comes to the board. Nobody picks or chooses it. It all comes to the board. And then at the meeting, a motion, a second is made. We usually defer to the unit reps. We usually honor and respect. There was no discussion about anything about the process. It was just a motion and second. They're really uneventful. And so what came up at the Elder Advisory was a request for bylaw change. And then when we talked it out, and I'd asked, are you really just asking to be notified when they go forward and notified once they're approved? And Mr. Latour said yes. They're not asking in Hessel, they're not asking to approve it or not approve it. They just want to be informed, because what happened was somebody was appointed, nobody notified them until the next meeting. They showed up for the meeting.
And they didn't even know, because that's what our bylaws state. So when there's someone down there taking a vote from you guys, they're going completely against the bylaws that we have in place. And that's what it causes conflict, it causes anger, hurtful feelings, and then everybody, that's bull. That is bull. That those things happen. And someone needs to be held accountable for that. I don't know who, but someone does.
DJ needs to say something.
DJ.
Thank you.
That's where.
I often get overlooked unless it's Facebook. When did you turn yours in?
Yeah, in January.
It should have got submitted then.
See, this is my whole point. My whole point is if it was turned in, normally then it would have came to us within the month. So how did it get to the point where basically it didn't come to us before the other ones came forward?
Did Joanne receive it?
See what I mean? That's what I'm looking at. I mean, I
Joanne
know.
doubles checks to make sure that all of them have been posted for at least 2 months. I think what happened was we
I thought
had
it was 1
2
month.
vacancies that caught up to each other.
They were posted, and we get them from Cheryl's office. Cheryl gets them, she sends them to us, and we save them, we make sure that they're posted for 2 months before the board sees them.
Okay.
And then what we do is we date stamp them as we get them, and so then when you guys see them, Linda will put them in the order that we receive them.
Well, then I guess to me, that's part of the problem in the process, because anybody else who wants to sit on committee, it goes directly to the board office, doesn't it?
No.
It doesn't go to the
No.
committee, does it?
Well, if we get it from the
Like
board.
if I want to sit on the health board, I don't send it to the health director.
Well, sometimes they do, but they send it to us. If we get it from an elder, we send it to the elder first. We don't give it to you guys first. We send it to them, we will call them and say,
So
I
isn't
got
that,
this in the mail.
I know that, but so isn't by that action alone asking them to look at them? If we send it there?
Elder committee, I
I
mean,
know, but
to
you send it
Cheryl.
to, so I guess-
Cheryl, not the
But
committee.
why would we send it to her?
Pardon?
But why would we send it to her?
Why do we send it to them?
No, I'm
Because
just saying.
they have a process. I gave that to you guys in your packet 2 weeks ago, that the process, it was from Angela and Bully put it in place a couple of years ago, and it showed what the process is, and it's been working ever since.
The only thing that might close the gap for the committees to know, as long as they know that they're not ratifying it or vetoing it or whatever, is when it goes back to Cheryl, that Cheryl shares with them.
Yes.
And that process is not concrete, but we can do that, and I've asked Cheryl to do that.
That or when it goes on our agenda.
When it goes on our agenda, the next day, I send a memo to Cheryl saying, these are the committees that were appointed. These are the people who were appointed. This is their terms. And so please inform them.
Okay.
And so she gets an email, and I send a copy of that memo to Christine and to Jessica.
So that part, once it gets to
That
Cheryl,
follow-up
needs to
is
be
that.
concrete. Right. That's potential. Okay. Next
Also goes in our file.
would be Wade.
Let me read that for you, Reed. I got this down pat.
Do we have any more member issues out there? We have, huh? What's that? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got a good amount of time.
Let's go back. 8 years ago. Come apart. That's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun.
Hand in more paperwork.
Yeah, did we already talk about this? No, I agree with you. Oh, this is old school.
Okay, I know you guys heard this issue from me quite a bit. It's still about the lake trout on Lake Michigan. But my issue on this is on page 6 and page 7 of the paperwork I give you. I'll start with Lake Huron first. When we had the overreach in 2002 on Lake Huron, we did it in a similar, different way than we did in Lake Michigan. In Lake Huron, see, when we had the problem there, we just changed the mortality rate by 2%, and the TAC was 62,500. And by just changing that 2%, we increased the thing to 86,000 pounds and 500 pounds on it, which really reduced our penalty by 24,000 pounds for the year of 2002. And then in 2003, we ended up raising the TAC again to 147,000 pounds. So we raised it twice. On Lake Michigan, I don't understand why we're not raising that number. For 2 years now, we got penalized last year. We shut the fishery down. We did everything, but and you go to Lake Huron, they raised it twice. You know, and they just by raising the mortality rate by that 2% to 47% instead of 45, it gives us the numbers. On Lake Michigan, the mortality rate is 40%. We would have just raised that to 45%. This issue wouldn't even have been here. 67 families wouldn't have got hurt. That simple. And my next thing when it comes to Lake Michigan, because on the same thing, you go to page 6 on that page, it's also got Lake Michigan on it. And it's about the sea lamprey thing. Sea lamprey concerns in Lake Michigan. Okay, when Tom was doing this, because there's reports done by the Intertribal Fishery and Assessment Program, and when we signed the agreement in 2000, the federal government said they were going to reduce the sea lamprey by significant numbers. Well, by 1998 levels. This document come out May 14th, 2003, and their thing is on it, northern Lake Michigan, but in the meantime, significant numbers of lake trout are being killed by sea lamprey above and beyond 98 levels. Okay, this is 2003. This is where the real problem comes in. One of our friends stopped over here and gave us this newspaper. It's from last year, March 12th of 2015. It's by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, new sea lamprey barrier needed. Lake Manstique River here. All right. They said 42,000 adult sea lampreys are going to the open water now. There was 1.6 million pounds of fish being killed a year by this one river here. They've been using the spermicide since 2003 because they They knew it was a problem in the 90s, and they can't get it under control. They have never got it under control. Now they want to spend $4 million here to put a barrier in the river down here to try to stop the sea lamprey program. But the thing about it, we got punished last year. We got punished before because now we're on a bag limit when we get 450,000 pounds of lake trout. They just come out in this paper with the Fish and Wildlife that they're killing 1.6 million pounds of fish. Well, at least half of them are lake trout out of one river. And how many rivers are from here all the way down to Grand Traverse Bay? The south end of Grand Traverse Bay where it jumps across. There's multiple rivers. There's literally millions of pounds of lake trout that are being consumed by these lamprey eel, and we're the ones being punished. I'm sorry the federal government can't control their problems. They created with their letting it come in here by the steamboats. But why are we being punished for something they can't control? Because right now that is what is happening now. We are being punished. And this bag limit, what we got on, because they're over, and everybody knows it, they're overplanting them now. They're taking them out of the trout refuge where they were supposed to plant them, and they're planting them on top of us now. You know, we're hoping that, you know, some reality is going to come to this picture, because it just doesn't make any sense. Because Tom's all over the place with it. When you go through his old paperwork, he's on one side of the issue, on one report, you get the next report a year, 2 years later, and he's on the other side of the report. So it's like, Cora down there, they got problems down there. They need to, you know, get on the same page. For some reason down there, they are not. But, you know, we could have solved all this problem, never created hardship for 67 families by raising that mortality rate by 5%. That's all we had to do. And it's 47% in Lake Huron. So what was the big deal about raising it 5% on Lake Michigan? Problem done. You wouldn't even be seeing us then.
Yeah, I know what to stop him. Okay, did you have anything more? I mean, I think they wanted you to,
He's not used to hearing that.
you know, because you're on the Cora and all that.
Oh, yeah, that's
to
what
be
he was
involved
speaking
and
to.
listen. I know, but I haven't listened to everybody else.
What's the question?
You just gave us.
The biggest
nuance.
question I got, Aaron, is why is it so different from Lake Huron to Lake Michigan? Why did we change policy, what we did on Lake Huron versus Lake Michigan?
In 2003?
Yeah, it was 2002 when we went over Lake Huron.
He's asking why we didn't adopt the same method in Michigan that we used.
Because, you know, they give them two raises, 2 bumps. You know, they went from 62,000 to 150,000 in 2003. In 2002, they backdated it in 2003 to 2002, so we didn't get penalized so hard.
So,
You know, this is what I don't understand.
So, if you're asking me to recall what was done in
Yeah,
2003,
I understand.
I think that, so a more effective way would be to bring it to, we have a new process where the board and the conservation meet collectively. That was actually last night at 4 o'clock. But I will bring this to Tom to get a response back to the board.
Because like I said, if we could have done that, we could have saved all of us so much trouble. Because, you guys know as much as I do, if you were at that meeting last night, the state's having the same problem on Lake Michigan. The thing about it, I do have the numbers on Lake Michigan on their hook and line, the pre-2000. Guess what? They caught 260,000 pounds hook and line, and mysteriously the number they're catching under 50,000 pounds. It's impossible. Because they took the trout stamp off their licenses. That number should be twice or 3 times as high because of that reason. You know, but the thing about it, the way they do their numbers with Creo numbers, they don't got actual numbers. They got to estimate. We don't. We got to go by fish reports. You know, and it's crucifying us. In my opinion, we should not be filling out fish reports. We should be just going by our wholesale records. Period. Eliminate the one issue because there's a record when you sell the fish. There's already a record there.
So I don't know if you got this update, but at the last core meeting, because the state's finding themselves in the position where they went over, and they're requesting 75,000. And so we're using the language from the decree, which is the 90/20, which would bring us up to 600 and, what is it? 75,000. So, Little Travers, for whatever reason, negotiating against themselves, put on the table real-time reporting, and we kicked that to the curb, and we did get approval to negotiate a position with the state, which is the 675,000.
Well, exactly, because the number is real low anyway. In 2000, everybody's got to remember, we dropped that number by 2/3. We used to take between the commercial side and the sport industry, it was anywhere from 1.3 to 1.5 million pounds in the areas we're talking about. So when we dropped that number, it was just like Lake Huron when we dropped it to 62,000. Well, in 1996, we had 250,000 pounds caught in the same area. Where, because of the agreement and the stipulations, what we put in there, we dropped it by 2/3. We knew we were going to have these problems because they tried to find a happy medium between everybody. Which, when it comes to this issue, it's almost impossible because there's so many, users groups out there. And
So
that's...
Jason also, Jason out of the gate proposed £1 million collectively, and then we would split the 90/20, which would be 100,000, 900,000. And that was too far out for the other parties to consider. But the other thing that Ralph brought up last night, which I think was really good, was this is our chance to renegotiate the penalty and to take the penalty out. Now that they're in the same boat as us, they might be willing to do that. So I think we're in a good position because they're going to face a penalty.
Point of information, Chair, did we ever find out if the state suffered a penalty in 2015 or the sport?
That was asked last night. I don't think we have the answer to that yet.
They don't penalize themselves. They just change the rules a little bit. You know what I mean? They don't get penalized. They just go to a bigger fish or something like that. That's their favorite little trick.
But the good news, again, is that they're in a position to negotiate. We believe the state is going to be on the same side as us. The sticking point will probably be Chuck Woolley. And we requested, I don't think I've seen you since then, but we requested of Larry Roberts, the Assistant Secretary, to get a new trustee. They're not going to replace Chuck Woolley, but they're potentially going to assign somebody to directly serve as our trustee, someone separate from Chuck Woolley who has a different interest. U.S. Fish and Wildlife has a separate interest than our interest, and I think that they're going to do that. The attorneys from all the 5 tribes are supposed to be writing up a formal letter for my signature as the chair of Cora to Larry Roberts so that we can do that. And I'm putting pressure because I asked today if that had been done yet, and the attorneys dropped the ball. They haven't done it yet, and they need to do it because we want that person that advocates for us rather than Chuck Woolley be at adverse purposes with us. We think that the state's going to be on the same page with us. We don't need the trustee to be opposing us.
Because in 2003, that's what happened too. See, the state did go over in 2 of their grids, the one in the southern part of Lake Huron and Munising area. And that's, it did have something to do with why they raised the numbers on Lake Huron differently than, what they do on Lake Michigan. I understand you got to deal with Cora down there.
Darcy.
Last night they talked about an increase on Huron, so I'd like you to speak to that, Aaron, that increase that they're pushing for in Huron.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't out of order.
That increase that they're talking about, Jason had talked about last night at the meeting about Huron, I'd like you to speak to that, and then, I don't know, was there a phone call today on
Yes.
Cora? So anyways, those are the 2 items that I'd like you guys to speak to.
Cora had 2 votes and 2 things to try. One was to allow one pre-sold in the M4, MM4, and then that was turned down on a 4-6 vote. The other was to increase the harvest limit to 700 pounds in Huron, and that was turned down 8-2. So next meeting's the 21st, and
Sylvia Mills opposed us on that one?
everybody opposes
So we had 2
I thought it
votes.
was 800,000 they wanted to increase it to.
They tried to move it up to 700 pounds to 800, anything. They're stuck at 600.
Okay.
okay? And it got turned down 8-2. And.
We should not have had a conference call. We're much better when we're in person.
I can tell you that
point of
they
information.
ganged up and anything, and Jason even told.
Just a point of information, these negotiations on video.
Yeah.
On this, I don't think it's.
Okay, hey,
Anyway,
Well, I guess it's already
he even made
done.
a remark that if the Sioux tribe, no one tribe's always against it, no matter what. So, but it didn't work.
I don't even think Russ is a signal.
So I'm going to, so we had a regular meeting scheduled for this Thursday, but I don't know who was not available, but they canceled it. They called us a workshop or a special meeting for today instead. And on these kind of critical issues, I think we should not push it. I think it might have been us to get approval for Jim, but the other part is the bag limit going into next month. So I think we should have called an emergency meeting instead for next week maybe. So I think what I'm going to see is if I'm going to talk to Grand Traverse, I'm going to talk to Little River, they're usually with us on these issues, and then schedule a special meeting so we can try to get this done.
21st.
We got to do it in person.
Aaron, what was the reason that the increase of Huron? Can you speak to that so the members know why you wanted what the increase was for?
I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because for the last 2 or 3 years, there's 100 and some thousand pounds of fish they're leaving it in the river, in the lakes, and they want to say, why leave it there? Some of our fishermen can get some extra. That was one.
Well, it's very important.
And the other thing is the state believes the feds are going to stop stocking Lake Huron this year, so last year, because they're reproducing naturally now. The lower Lake Michigan is. The upper northern part of Lake Michigan is not. They figured there'll be 5 or 6 more years stocking, but less stocking.
Yeah, because when it comes to that planting, see where we really made a mistake when we did our agreement is we put natural reproduction. Okay, we didn't specificate that it had to be the native strain of the lake. See, now they took a trout from New York out there and brought it here and started planting it, and it's reproducing on its own now. So this is why they're calling it reproduction, but it's not a natural species. It's actually an invasive species because it's not natural from here. It's like a zebra mussel or anything else. It's not natural, and what we always wondered is what happened to the natural strain. But they say the lamprey eel eats it and stuff though, but we always thought that was the federal government's goal, was to establish the native strain here. But somehow when we signed that 2000 agreement, it got, the natural reproduction, and they really pushed everything to the limits there, because when we didn't word stuff just perfect, they took advantage. And that's, and like I said, our fishery right now is under attack from Canada right now because of the whitefish market, because of the embargo on Russia. Because Canada cannot move their whitefish to Russia now. They're moving them on the American markets, and we're taking a beating right now. And I mean a real beating. And it's going to get real bad here coming up. Because most of the boats haven't started yet. And we can't sell our fish now. Most of the fish buyers are down to 10 or 15,000 pounds to the big markets out in New York and Chicago. That's all they'll take from them for a week. So this thing is going to get really messy coming up now. And this trout issue and that, we spent way, way, way too much time on this. Way too much time. Because there's a lot more issues what really need to be addressed. And one of them is the exotic species what are exploding on the lakes now. With the algae and the moss out here, what we got, we're getting moss already in March, black moss, and that's getting ruined already. Usually we don't get it until June. We're getting it already. So things are really, really complex right now, and I hope you guys are, you got to be real watchful right now, especially when it comes to the state and federal government. Because I don't think they really care. They want this industry away from us in a big way.
Hey, one other thing you might appreciate is, so we talked last night about how do we prepare. Well, we talked about the RFP process for selecting a treaty rights attorney, and we also talked about how do we prepare and get all the issues. And we had given some discussion to having community meetings and get input up front, and then have that help crystallize and out in the field, not just in the Sioux where people have to drive.
Information's good, Aaron. Anytime you can get information out, it's a good thing. You know that better than anybody.
Right. When we drafted up the inland, that's exactly how we did it. We had community meetings and we did a survey. There was also a request to do a survey. Kathy had brought up not to leave out the subsistence from the process, so that they need to have
Well, they
a
need to
voice
be
too.
in there, because that's the masses, that's everybody in the tribe gets the opportunity. And we gotta, I wish we could, move them things around where we could get the old barter back in there, so people can barter for different things when they do that, because how else are they gonna, you got an outboard motor and thing, and gas, and all this stuff, the net alone, what you get costs anywhere from $200 to $300 for the net to even do it. Well, it kind of defeats the purpose to feed yourself if the stuff costs that much. You know what I mean? Right. Like I said, I appreciate your time. You guys
That's right.
Thanks.
I'm looking at
Hi, I know you know me. I'm Troy Jensen, and I'm a commercial gill netter on the Great Lakes system. And thank you for replying to that letter where we could fish MM1. You notified us anyway. But my question on gill netting is, because I am a gill netter, and my question is do we got any future in it? Because the way you did thing last 2015, Aaron, you closed us down. And we had a lamprey control problem in Manistee River for God's sakes. One point, like my brothers said, so many fish that got killed by them per year here, and we got kicked out of there, Aaron. I know you can't change that anymore. That's the past. Hey, we can't change that. But the future, what I would like to ask is all the because I went fishing up in Munising when you closed our Michigan down. I went to Superior. You know what I found out there? The western end there was closed too. So it was hard to even go make a living. Lake Huron, I was thinking about going there, but you already had a bag limit on that. So, or the committee or Cora did.
I'm glad you made that correction. I'm glad you understand that.
Yes. I understand it is just putting it all together. The point I'm getting at is, is MM1, 2, and 3 open to us now?
Yes, right?
Okay, but when I go home with my gill nets, I can't fish MM1 yet. Could you answer that? You made sure the stipulation in that document where it opened up January 1st to March 31st, you closed that pretty fast for us. So are you going to take that same opinion in 2020?
You're putting
for getting MM1
individual. Number one, I don't know if I will be
as
here
a fisheries
2020. Number two, the board of directors will formulate the position of the tribe.
Yes.
One of the things that I've said that I think I disagree pretty strongly with some members of the board, that anything we agree on, I believe it needs to be put to a vote of all of the people as a referendum. So you're asking me to tell you what I'm going to agree to in 2020 in terms of the consent decree. Number one, I may not be here.
Right, exactly.
Number two, the position of the tribe will be determined by the board, and I have advised the board, and I've said this publicly, that I think it should include a referendum. Denise brought up in 2000, when we gave faith to the negotiators on our team, that this was supposed to come back for community meetings. We were told and assured that it would happen, never happened. So what we've talked as a team is that we want to do it differently. We want to have community meetings in advance. We want to survey people. We want to clearly know our position in the best interest. Does that mean individual fishermen are going to get what they want? Absolutely not. Because the majority of the tribe, the benefit is the tribes and the majority of the people. So the people.
Exactly. So while you're still in office, Aaron, you should open tribal licenses for people to get vote for their treaty rights.
If I had the authority to open up wherever I can open up, I absolutely will do it.
With that emergency order that you did last year, you bring it down to those 5 tribes or 4 tribes and you demand it. Because reason being is when I see articles in our Indian newspaper of big boats, they had 900 at one time back in the 70s. 900 people. Is this an economic growth for our tribe? If we could get 900, at least 400 of these big boats, that would be 1,500 people working just in the boat fishing industry. A lot more than worrying about some co-captains, which shouldn't even be there. And this is for Gillnet. Not the way our past did it.
Right.
The take our Gillnet away and converting us to so-called bigger guys getting the law.
Last night, you'd find it interesting that Jimmy Prizo and Todd had explained that through the 2020 negotiations, that their name was put forward as a negotiation tool to make them convert, and nobody ever talked to them about converting. So I don't know how all of that was done then, but we have resolved as a group. But one other thing is we're talking about how we might do it, but yesterday the board said, several board members had said, we want to vote to direct how we're going to do it.
But
that way it has to happen.
I don't want to end up like this boat in a museum, because that's where you guys are going with this bag limit. You just crushed our living. Christ's sake, excuse my language. You know, I mean, you crushed it, killed it. You know, I don't know how, you know, our income went to crappers. We can't go home, we can't fish MM1, because you guys, 31 years ago made a deal. At first, everybody was kicked out, but when you know, because MM1 wasn't closed. Just to the Gillnetters, it was closed. You know, I don't know if you want to take that in fact, but that's what you're supposed to be protecting this board. It don't matter way you want to think of voting or anything, it's our treaty rights. And apparently MM1 ain't our treaty right area no more. And then you go up to Munising, same thing from Munising to Marquette, closed. You know, I mean, come on. And then Lake Huron, I wish I knew more of it, because if I would have went there, the living ain't there. Because I can't go catch 700 pounds and throw the rest over. Or nobody can. Nobody can. Because we didn't get subsidized for that. Because we believed in our gillnets, but our tribal board, well, hey, they know best. And they're going to this same committee that they set up. Most of those guys there don't fish gillnets. So I don't know, you know, if they're talking for their track nets or gillnets. I'm a gillnet. They got different views. They can go to one fish. I can't. Or any gillnet can't. Even they can't in the end, because look at what's happening. If that's true, where this whitefish market's crashing.
So
you're on the hot seat.
If it's
helpful, the whole board is.
But if it's helpful, what we talked about yesterday was we recognize that not one segment of our population should speak for the entire fisheries. We respect that we do have a committee, and that's the purpose of the committee. But several board members had indicated that they want to make sure that the voice of subsistence is heard, that individual fishers are heard, and also people who are not currently exercising the right, because they could exercise the right if they choose to. So we have talked about gathering all of that input through community meetings and then surveys, and crystallize all of that, make sense of it, so that we are informed as we go forward for 2020, whoever is going to be negotiating.
I know, but you got to remember, a lot of people are scared of this board.
Well, I understand that. And there's probably good reasons sometimes.
But
I think we're committed to
because like over the years since 2000, we've been doing and then me and my brother a year in jail because this tribe wouldn't put back their cards.
That's true.
So
I spent a year in jail. Dang it.
That's true.
So
or me and my brother did.
That's
Another
more
guy
complicated.
that didn't have nothing to do with us.
So Yeah, I can't speak to that because I wasn't here, but I do know that the board did authorize some financial support for your case and spent, I think, $50,000.
Yes, but
We
when
never
you,
do that for anybody else.
but when you sent us back to the fisheries board, they wouldn't appeal it. It cost them $4,000. They wouldn't go into general, or the fisheries fund and get $4,000 to appeal their own sovereignty. And so they let us go to jail. You know what they told us? Oh, we'll think about it. Yeah, but we're going to, we told them we're going to jail in another week. If you don't appeal this for $4,000, they let us go, they didn't appeal it. Not saying we would have won, I think we would have lost, because it wasn't in federal level. That court over there in Escanaba was racist right down to the max to us Indians.
One of the considerations that the board has collectively is the rights of the many over the desires of the few. And I think collectively, and again, I wasn't here, but I understand that the decision was made in order to preserve the right for the future generations rather than roll the dice on one case. And I think that probably was the right decision. I know board members are shaking their head on this.
So you're saying that we should have went to jail for a tribal car?
I wasn't here. I wasn't part of any process of...
I know, but you could look at it now.
I don't know how it would change anything.
Well, go put the state of Michigan in its place and tell them they don't have authority over our people.
So collectively the board has the right...
Or the whole board should do that, not just you.
But all right, so I mean...
Okay, I'm getting off topic. Well, okay, I'm back to the commercial fishing. I would just like to hope that you look at our treaty area and open it all up. Because I did ask for emergency order up in Munising once to open all areas before this come down. And now it has come down. I would still like to have this tribal board emergency order. All waters open to all 5 tribes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next is Judy Daly.
Honey, I just have 2 things and they're not real long. First of all, I would like to have everyone take a look at their Facebook or get on Facebook. Tom Byron has put out something very, very interesting about the tribe. That it's a video. It's called The Story of the People, and it was made in 1994. And you put it on the site. So please take a look at that.
Is that our video?
Excuse me?
Is that the Sioux Tribes video?
Yes.
Oh yeah, our video production department did that.
Yes, and it's wonderful.
It is.
And it should be brought forward again. Please have everybody you know take a look at it. We all need to remember where we came from, how we got there. As Churchill said, and it wasn't his words, it was prior, those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And that's very, very important for our tribe as we're just listening to some of this history that he's bringing up. The other thing that I brought forward was I was at Munising, thank you ladies, and I picked up one of these elder care transportation. I don't know if you've seen it. It's available for the Sioux Tribe members, 60 years or over, non-emergency medical transportation. If you've already seen it, I don't need to read the whole thing about the priorities and how to call the elder care services. They need to provide information for reservation, date, time, and place of medical appointment, their physician's name and number, but of course, again, what I'm here to talk about is the cost and how far does this go. When we look at our last paper, I believe on the 19th of February, maybe it was the one before, it is our Unit 5 and how far Unit 5 is. It's Arnold, All Train, Beaver Grove, Rumley, Seney, Shingleton. It's very rural. In Own City, $5 a ride. Now, what I'm wondering is if the person calls up and they're from Arnold and it's within their own city, is that what this is? Do you know? None of us know.
Bonnie might know.
I believe it is $5 for every time that elders would use the transportation.
no matter where they live in the Unit 5.
I believe so, yes.
I have the board list.
And then outside of the city limits, I don't know what city limits, it's $10 an hour. So if I need a ride to the Sioux, I'm going to be paying $10 an hour, which would be $30 each way. And that's what I always come forward to say is, why do you think people need these rides if they have their own transportation? And where do you think they're going to come up with $60? These are the issues that I bring forward, are about the elderly. Where do you expect them to get the money? And the next thing that I'm brought forward is, what about the grant? Will the grant be usable for this? The grant for when it's going to be in place for transportation?
Wendy Hoffman would have to speak to that grant, but I believe that she's actually working on some transit, partnering with the local transit companies so that they would actually do transportation to the clinic. And what we're trying to do to coordinate with our side is trying to set up like one day, like for elders that are coming from a distance, so that in the clinic they can get several appointments done at the same time, and then you just take that transit. So we're trying to coordinate with that, but I don't know all of the details of her grant yet.
So are you hearing the basis of why I'm up here? It's the money again. It's the people that are in poverty. Where do they get $60? And I know that doesn't sound like a lot to some, but it is vital. It's a lot of money, $60 to go to the doctor. Don't get me wrong, healthcare is wonderful, we need it. We need to provide it, but again, where and when are we going to take care of the elders that are in poverty and not charge them $5 or $10? Because they may not have a friend or a relative, but they do have a tribe that should be providing this for them. I'd like to thank, this is on a different with the health, Bonnie did an exceptional job with my niece. My niece has had to have some extensive work done on her face. She lives downstate, and I want to thank you so much. My niece was called, it was taken care of, it's not over, but it is her beginning. And I would like to thank all of you for listening to me. I will be back.
Thank you.
And we need more.
Okay, next is actually Dolores. Dolores Levesque. Maybe we have matching jackets.
Are these things working?
Yeah.
That one's not. Okay, first of all, I want to say that Unit 5 has not forgotten and will not forget the way Rita Galiptis was treated in our unit, especially by the board when you could do and could have done something. So I'm going to read you something that I've got put together here, and I hope that you realize that you've really taken a lot of life out of Rita. She should have been, what would I say, as your co-worker. You should have helped her somewhat, to some extent more than what you did. So I'm going to read my notes. And I'm here to address the violation of our tribal constitution in allowing the hearing board to violate the 60-day requirement in rendering a decision which occurred in the removal of Rita Galiptis from the tribal board. Our tribal constitution is the governing document of our tribe. You board members take an oath to uphold it, and boards are not allowed to change it. Only the members can do that by a vote. Board are not allowed to write codes or laws that conflict with the Constitution. If a conflict occurs between the Constitution and a code, then the Constitution must be followed as our supreme document. But this did not happen in the removal of Rita. The removal code not only conflicts with the Constitution, but the hearing officer violated the Constitution when he exceeded the 60-day time period in rendering a decision for removal on the removal petition. Our tribal constitution outlines a procedure for removal of a member of the board. Article 6, Section 4B states, the hearing board shall decide whether the accused shall be removed from office within 60 days after receipt of the petition. Now, you members should know all of these codes and sections and articles. You should know them in your brain, deeply embedded. The removal code affirms the same period in section 16-1041 stating, the filing of a petition constitutes receipt of a petition within the meaning of tribal constitution, Article 6, Section 4A. Then later in the removal code in section 16-111-9, a different 60-day period is established by stating that the decision shall be rendered within 60 days after the initial hearing. This is a different time period than what is stated in the Constitution, and because of this conflict, the code should never have been used. You board members should have caught that. You know your Constitution and the code. You should have caught this conflict before even proceeding with sending the petitions to a hearing board, but you did not. You let it go by. This removal code cannot be used again, and if you attempt to change it now, fix it, it will be an acknowledgement that it was wrong and faulty to begin with. But regardless of the different dates, the hearing panel missed both deadlines. Yet now we are being told that the hearing officer has the power to interpret the Constitution. The timeline established in the Constitution is perfectly clear. It states 60 days from submission of the petition. But when the hearing officer missed the deadline, he covered his tracks and used his power of interpretation as justification for refusing the motion to dismiss filed by Rita's lawyer. He just let it slide. He used his power of interpretation. If the hearing officer sincerely had a problem with that 60 days, he should have done something about it in the beginning and not wait until after the whole trial was done. What good are the codes and laws of our tribal constitution? It's nothing if you don't follow through it and back it up. We elect you as board members to go ahead and follow the Constitution. But I've been watching throughout the years, the Constitution is used only when it helps somebody meet their specific needs. And our board does not really stand up and take notice and hang in there and do what they should be doing. The board has an obligation to make this right by disbanding the hearing panel and voiding their decision to remove Rita. Now, the board has the power. It is detailed in Article 3, Powers of the Board, Section 1N, which states the board has the power to review any action of subordinate boards and to cancel such delegation. Now, we do know that the hearing panel and the judge knows we're all subordinate of you, of the board. And you have that power even to this day to stand up and do what is right. You can null and void all of this. And though Rita is off the chair, she's no longer a board member, at least she could leave with some dignity. Her dignity is completely taken away from her. And I'd be ashamed if I was sitting here as a board member and treat a fellow board member such as you people did by not standing up and doing the right thing and backing her. You had plenty of time to stop all of this stuff, and you should know your Constitution and your codes from front to back. And I am wondering, how long will it take for you to be doing something? You still have time to null and void that and let her leave with some dignity. With that, I say thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Okay, why don't we take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll go to the board issues. I don't think there are any other member issues. They could go until 6 still, but we'll start the board issues as soon as we come back from a 5-minute break.
Okay,
And we do have the fundraiser, Indian Taco sale. It goes until 6 o'clock. We don't have a lot of people here for some reason or another. So what I'd like to ask is if you aren't going to buy an Indian taco, please make a $20 donation to the Elder Committee so they can at least help offset their cost. And I will make a $100 donation to the committee as well.
You know you can buy to-goes there.
And yes, you can buy to go.